My name's James Hawken, and I'm a piano player. I've just got a new single out. It's called You Got a Day. It's completely different to what all the piano pieces I've been putting out. My piano pieces have been sort of neoclassical, stroke, ambient. Nice little pieces, but just basically all piano based. No singing, just instrumentals. So I had an urge to do something slightly different. One day I just felt fantastic in myself that I've come through 30 odd years of addiction to all sorts of things, mainly alcohol, but other drugs as well. And towards the end of that sort of 30-year period, psychiatric drugs. And I cleansed myself of everything like that would affect my head. And I felt joyous that my mind is now free, totally free, uncaged, unfettered, unchained. And it was in the morning, and it was like, I have a day. I have a day. I'm not dead. I actually have a whole day to enjoy, to do something constructive, artistically, help somebody, support somebody at work. I do that. And it was like, I have given myself a gift that I have this day, and I have a responsibility to me to make the best of it, and to, most of all, enjoy it. You've got a day. Everybody's got a day. And I know it can be pretty shit for some people. It really can be. And, you know, I deal with it on a daily basis at work, that youngsters' lives can be shit. And me having this day to put a little bit of positivity into somebody else's life, a youngster's life. And when I was that age, it was a massive problem for me, which probably led into these addictions. And do you know what? I can see it in these youngsters as well, that some form of chemical crutch might be an answer at the moment for them, a temporary band-aid, if you like. And this will lead, as it led for me, into a long time of addiction. Okay, I was functioning, if you like, in what we call our society, holding down responsible jobs, holding down a relationship. Now, I have to say that my relationship with the female Sarah is more down to her than me. She has persevered with me through all the trials and tribulations and all the difficulties that I've presented to her. I still don't understand why she has. She must see some goodness in me, which gives me the faith to think also that it may be worth me living, if you like, and living with that. And this is like a trial now, also because I've changed again. You know, multifaceted all through my life. I've now changed again with another period of life where I have to come to terms with my brain activity as it is in its raw state. And that means sometimes my filter system, when I'm dealing with people in conversation or in behavior-wise, isn't really there. I need to sort of restructure it a little bit in this unfettered state to be more conducive to getting along with people in a more productive, friendly way, I suppose, especially Sarah, because, I'm afraid she gets it all. She gets the raw me. When I'm out and around, obviously I put this mask on, and my filter system is in place a little bit. And I don't present as I do at home. And it's quite difficult at home because my behaviour is quite, as I say, it's in its raw state. So this has to be tempered a little bit over a period of time. And I mean, that sort of stage at the moment where I'm learning about myself, going back really to being a child. And of course, that brings back some of the problems that I had when I was a child. So, dreams, sleeping is a problem. Nightmares and anxiety dreams are prevalent now. So, I'm not getting much sleep, which doesn't also help. But it's a bit of a rebirth. So, I'm having to find my way again in a relationship. My most important thing is the relationship with Sarah, and my relationship with the external world, in this sort of perceived reality, this perception that we all have in our head of what's around us and our interaction within it, which includes interaction with other people. But it also includes creativity. The piano, as I've said in previous podcasts, this is like a conduit of how I feel. It's the piano understands me in a way that nothing else does, or music, if you like, in general. And me producing it, creating it, allows me to exorcise some feelings I have in me, which may be frustration, maybe anger, and in this case, joy. So how it came about was that Emily Dolan Davies, she's a drummer who's been on tour with Kim Wilde. She also plays with Roxy Music, and I think if I get it right, she's actually drumming on The Voice, which isn't it a TV program of some talent contest, singing, I assume, which is pretty amazing. Anyway, she has these samples of her drumming online, and I was inspired by one of her drumming samples that went on for about over 3 minutes of this drum pattern that she was laying down, and I jammed to it and made up this sort of this piano, electric piano, jazzy, funky, bluesy type of riff, or this arrangement, if you like, this jam, and I started singing "You Got a Day," and for some reason, that's all I could say really was "You Got a Day," and I was just blurting this out in this sort of scat. I won't call it singing. It's not really singing. It's I was making the voice with my larynx, and it's being projected through my mouth into the microphone, and it was just an expression basically. And anyway, I put a bit of back into bass and things, and I thought it sounded quite good. So I sent it to Emily. I said, what do you think? I'm using your drums in this, and she said, she said that it's really good, and she was really pleased with it. And if I was going to release it, then she would want a copy of it and get it out on her social media in her thing. And I thought, well, that's pretty positive. So I've stuck it out, and I've sort of made this bit of a crazy video to go with it, which you can see. So I've said sort of in the past that I might want to talk about addiction. Addiction is a pretty personal thing, isn't it? For every addict, there's a different reason for them being an addict. I work with a lot of youngsters who've been diagnosed with autism. And for every different person I have with this diagnosis of autism, there's a different version of autism. So there's a multitude of versions of that. So there's also obviously a multitude of versions of addiction and the reasons why. And obviously the so-called experts have sort of looked at it, and they still don't understand addiction and why we get addicted to things. There's several ideas. Obviously, it's nature nurture. It can be part of who you are, your genetics. your physical makeup, the biological model, if you like, and also the environment, the nurture bit, where how we were brought up. Were you brought up in an environment of addicts, or was it a struggle? Were you in poverty? I don't know, hedonistic way? Your environment's going to mold who and how you go through life. Also with the genetic way, the biological model, if you have some neurological, I'm not going to call it disorder because I really hate that word, but a neurological way that your brain works that would lead to difficulties fitting into this so-called society of ours or whatever, that a drug makes it easier, makes it better, or can blank it out. Somebody described being on opiates, on heroin in particular, as curling up with a lovely warm blanket. It's comforting. It gives you comfort and escapism, I suppose. So, if you look at the biological model, from what we can gather, or what so-called experts have gathered, is this little reward thing that we have. Neurological little neurons fire and give you like a reward. So your little dopamine stuff comes out, your neurotransmitters, and you feel good. Like a reward thing, you feel good about doing something. So you might have that with a form of exercise. Feel good about doing that. You might feel about having a great interaction with somebody. You might feel better with so-called falling in love, whatever that means. Creativity gives you a reward. Something gives you a reward, and you tend to think that a drug might, especially alcohol, sort of overrides this, sort of hijacks this, your brain doing this. So you sort of stop getting the reward from those things and only get the reward from that drug. And then when that drug is not present, you can go, your brain is like saying, well, hang on a minute. I'm going to create all these problems. I'm going to make you feel absolutely shit. Depression, physical, whatever it is, if you don't give me that drug again. And therefore you need to resupply your brain with that drug to give you that reward or to make you good. And the trouble is when that then becomes the norm, and you have to take it to feel normal. And all this, it's a normal way of life. I can remember that with alcohol, it was a bottle of wine just to normalize. So that's just to get myself back into a mental framework where I could sort of function normally, if you like. I felt normally. So I remember when I did first try alcohol and maybe got a bit drunk, I suppose, it was like all of a sudden my struggles and my difficulties faded away. I could be myself. I could communicate with people easily. It wasn't a struggle. I didn't have to analyze things. I didn't not fit. I fitted. And this is what alcohol did to me. I fitted. Going to the pub and stuff. I fitted somewhere. I fitted into this drinking community. And it's this fit that I needed and became a norm for 30 odd years. That fit via alcohol. I also tried other things, obviously. I won't go through the whole list of drugs that I tried, but that was all sort of more recreational and fun until they became a problem. Cannabis obviously became a psychological problem. I think it affected me with my anxiety and my paranoia, and I got into a bit of a state with it, unable to really function, and so that went out the window. And with stimulants, they still don't really know that they don't have like a medical thing to be able to help addiction to stimulants like your cocaine or your methamphetamines and stuff like that. They still don't. With other things, maybe like alcohol, nicotine, stuff like that, they may have sort of a medical thing, a medical model which they can approach with that. Opiates, for instance, they can because we have things like your methadone and stuff like that to help with the addiction to that and the withdrawal things. Alcohol, they sort of have the same. You can be prescribed medication. I did it all without any of that. Although I did go into so-called rehab about 3 or 4 times, and none of it was successful. I had therapy and stuff for a couple of years, and also CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and none of it worked for me. So the only thing that worked was me. I did it. I had to do it myself, and I had to want to do it. Obviously, it's a common theme. Had to want to do it. And at the end of the alcohol years, I suppose, for the last 3 or 4 years, I said I was like a functioning addict all through, but the last 3 or 4 years, definitely not. Couldn't hold down a job. Relationship-wise was very tenuous. I was skiving off work to just go drinking. It was impossible. I couldn't do it. I just was not functioning at all. The only thing was consuming me was, getting a drink, getting under the influence of it. And also with the medical model, with the biological model, brain exploration and everything else is quite a new thing, really. As far as physicalness of the brain and what it does, I mean, for generations, for thousands of years, we've experimented psychologically with the brain, with your ayahuasca and things like that, and little journeys that we can take ourselves off with the shaman and all this sort of business. But so-called experts again have sort of identified this frontal cortex, which is where all your decision-making processes go on, so they think. And when you're an addict, so they think that your frontal cortex can be destroyed, basically. It really, really affects this frontal cortex, and your decision-making ability goes right out the window. So, you can say, okay, when I wake up today, I know if I go and open that bottle of wine, it's just going to lead on to the rest of the day being an alcoholic sort of stupor, and I'm going to waste a day doing that. Your brain would tell you that, but because your decision-making process has gone completely out the window, you cannot rationalize that thought in order to make a decision for the better, and not to do that. So your decision-making goes to having that drink. Go down the bookies. You know that you're going to lose. I mean, gambling, you are going to lose more often than not. The addiction to gambling will tell your frontal cortex that, or the actual addiction and the frontal cortex sort of destruction won't allow you to make that decision not to do that. So anything through life, your decision-making will not necessarily be something that you can do that will make you do things better in your life. It will turn to the things that you're addicted to that are more destructive, whether you can rationally think it right through and imagine the consequences and foretell what might happen, which is usually bad. Your decision-making process will err on the side of those things that will cock everything up. So if we sort of go on with the frontal cortex type thing and the decision-making process, apparently teens, when you're in your teens, this thing is all a bit wild anyway, and the rewarding thing in your brain, the neurotransmitters are also a bit wild in your teens. And therefore, if you introduce any form of stimulant or any sort of drug, addictive, anything, in your teens, you're more susceptible to for that to take a greater effect, and also the addictive nature of it to be greater. This worries me a lot with working with the youngsters that I am at the moment. That if they are, a lot of them do smoke weed, and drugs are, is a thing in our culture that it's not romanticized, but it is a thing that you're going to try when you're young. The reasons for that, again, sociological reasons, cultural reasons, societal reasons are probably another complete subject. And when I've been working in mental health, I've had to work with youngsters, usually young men, to be honest with you, in their early 20s that have mental illness, and they have psychosis, and they have psychosis through substance abuse, drug-induced psychosis. And there's a problem. And I've spoken to quite a lot of people that started smoking weed and stuff, in their early teens, and experimenting with other things. And when your brain has been formed, and also the reactions of your brain and neurotransmitters are heightened. I mean, this stuff, I've seen it. It can do some real damage. Obviously, also there are people that it doesn't, and people can have a normal so-called life, and so-called normal life. Sorry, through it by smoke weed all their life and done things recreationally, and it's not been a problem. But what I've seen and the problems that I've seen, it is pretty serious and devastating, not just for that person, that young person, but for the family and for everybody around them, their friends and everything. And you just got to be careful. I mean, this, Anyway, I'm not gonna lecture anybody about the pros and cons of taking it. I mean, there's no point. People would do anyway, whether whoever says anything about it. I mean, especially youngsters. I mean, they're gonna experiment. That's what you do when you're teens, isn't it? And all I can do is give people the benefit of my experience. It's not advice. I never advise anybody. I just say, look, this, in my experience, this thing has happened to me and to other people, and it's up to you what you do with this piece of information. And hope for the best. That's what we do really in life, isn't it? Hope for the best. Anyway. So what I haven't talked about in detail is psychiatric drugs. Now, I was prescribed antidepressants, and when I was at my worst, I was prescribed antipsychotics. The antidepressants were the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And I've got to be honest that I found the addiction to these harder to break than everything else, probably on a par with alcohol. Yes, they sort of helped temporarily. I was in a bit of a crisis situation. And then the disadvantages, which there are a lot of side effects. You're suppressed, basically. Your thoughts, your mind, your brain is suppressed. And with that, it's like somebody described it as wading through treacle, which is what life is like a little bit there. But they do have advantages for a short time, which I found. Afterwards, the disadvantages outweighed the advantages by far. And I was on them for a long time. and coming off them was a complete nightmare. I won't go into all the symptoms. It's like when your brain is emerging from complete docility, complete suppression. So dreams become very, very vivid. And they are constant when you're sleeping, very, very vivid, and you wake up and it's as though you've experienced a whole thing. I mean, the feelings and emotions that I experienced, or still do experience with dreams, is real. And when I wake up in the morning, those feelings and emotions are there still, and they are real, and sort of carried on into the day. This all was heightened when I was coming off risperidone, especially the antipsychotic, and also with psychiatric medications, especially like risperidone and things. You gain weight, you put on weight physically, put on weight, and this obviously has a detrimental effect on your self-esteem and well-being mentally. I became fat. And also, obviously, alcohol intake as well. Combine alcohol and psychiatric drugs, and you balloon basically. So there's all that to deal with. And I tried risperidone. I tried to come off several times, and the only way to do it for me was to stop completely and just have to go cold turkey. And the cold turkey lasted months. But I think I've sort of come through it now. Antidepressants weren't as bad. It's like your brain has a complete need for something, and once you remove that need, that thing, that's all it's desiring, and it makes you feel crap. And anti-psychiatric medication are no different, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they made me feel really crap, but I knew that I had to go through it all to come out the other side. And blow me, I tell you what, it is miles different, miles better. These SSRIs, they even think these days with current research, it's, actually, as far as the depressive symptoms are concerned, it doesn't really help that much. Maybe initially, but certainly not long term. Yeah, people prescribe these things all the time, and prescribe them for long term, and people can't come off of them. Yes, make big pharma, lovely. They're making a lot of money, but it's not doing us any good whatsoever. These psychiatric meds. Yeah, I know. I've dealt with people who's been through real psychotic episodes and become hospitalised and sectioned, and come out of hospital and they're on depot. They're on injections once every 3 months, whatever it is, and it's difficult for them to go through their life, and how what the work I've been doing with them. That's been an obstacle. But maybe for severe cases, that is one. It is a sort of an answer to reduce psychosis in a way that is so debilitating that you have to be sectioned. So for maybe the not quite so heavy mental health problems, to think of medication as like the first instance, you go to the GP, and you may have symptoms of depression, and the first thing they're going to do is put you on antidepressants. I think it's wrong. It's a real holistic thing that we need to think about, the whole gamut of your life. And I think that medication should be last resort. That's my opinion. But all of that is in the past. Now, if I can do that, other people can too. And nobody listens to my podcast. Maybe sometime in the future they might, but if you are struggling, you are listening to this podcast, then the likelihood is that you can do it. I mean, there's loads of people that have done it. There's loads of celebrities that have gone through it. But mostly you have to do it. You are the main factor in this, and you can do it. And that's the message I wanted to convey. Apart from the joyousness of not being addicted to anything, I mean, it really is fantastic. I know it's a cliche. I know everybody says it, an ex-addict will say it. But it really, really is the best thing ever. It reminds me of a story about Iggy Pop, a notorious drug taker. He woke up one morning and he sort of thought, I wonder what it's like not to take drugs. So he didn't, and found it was the most wonderful experience that he had. And therefore decided not to and came off everything. And it really is a fantastic experience. And remember, whatever shit you're in, you got a day. And please, please, please make the most of it.